Forget Spider-Man. Ancient Egyptians were the original rooftop daredevils. Most folks imagine them as solemn pyramid builders, not exactly the type to leap between buildings like caffeinated cats. But myth, meet your match. Tomb paintings reveal scenes of sprightly youths vaulting from roof to roof, limbs heroically mid-air. Because nothing says athletic prowess like risking a sprained ankle over your neighbor's laundry line. It helps that ancient Egyptian towns had tightly packed, flat-roofed homes, a perfect sun-baked obstacle course. Kids and teens turned these rooftops into arenas for sprinting, jumping, and spirited competitions. Take that, modern gym memberships. Some accounts even hint at full-on street races and climbing contests breaking out during festivals. If hieroglyphs could talk, they'd probably be shouting, "Parkour!" every time a kid cleared a gap. So next time you imagine ancient Egypt, forget running from mummies. Sometimes, they were just sprinting away from their neighbors' chickens. Though the spirit of parkour remained alive and kicking, chicken-induced panic included. Now, who's up for a rooftop dash at the next block party? Just as ancient Egyptians were skilled in agile rooftop maneuvers, medieval knights brought their own legendary flair to the battlefield, wielding swords with unmatched prowess. Picture a knight swinging his sword with the effortless flair of a Jedi at a Renaissance rave. Glowing blade optional, techno beats mandatory. We all know the image. A lone hero fending off foes, broadsword swishing one-handed, armor-clad enemies toppling like buttered toast. It's the fantasy Hollywood and video games sell us, where dramatic single-handed swings save the day and nobody ever drops their weapon or their dignity. Reality? Medieval swords were practical, hefty, and spectacularly ill-suited for solo pirouettes. Most combat demanded both hands glued to the hilt, because swinging that steel was less dance-off and more upper-body CrossFit worthy. Armor? Forget slicing through it. Those metal plates had more resilience than a vintage Volvo. If knights could carve through armor that easily, blacksmiths would have unionized in protest. True warriors relied on teamwork, discipline, and skill, not Luke Skywalker cosplay. Sorry, Black Knight, even lightsabers never needed sharpening. While knights brandished swords reminiscent of glowing lightsabers, the Vikings are often imagined with their iconic horned helmets, a symbol as enduring as it is mistaken. Picture a fearsome Viking charging into battle with horns blazing from his helmet, ready to gore foes and maybe snag a passing clothesline. Impressive? Only in Hollywood. The popular image of Vikings clomping around in horned helmets is a 19th century theater invention, not a 9th century Norwegian reality. Let's be honest, no self-respecting raider wants to get stuck in a doorway, jousting with the woodwork before the pillaging even begins. Real Viking helmets were as practical as IKEA furniture instructions, sleek, sturdy, and delightfully hornless. Archaeologists have unearthed plenty of iron caps, but not a single authentic horned model. Why? Because horns might impress cattle, but they're terrible for dodging axes, ducking through doorways, or dodging hostile low-flying waterfowl. Norse carvings show streamlined warriors, not wannabe elk cosplayers. So next time you spot a horned helmet at a costume party, remember, that looks more Broadway than Blood Eagle, leaving plenty of room for their fabulous Scandinavian man buns. Beyond Viking myths lie the tales of samurai, warriors who embodied honor as their ultimate creed in every aspect of life. Imagine a world where losing your sandals meant signing up for ritual suicide. Welcome to the mythic life of the samurai. Popular lore paints these warriors as flawless, honor-obsessed paragons, always teetering on the edge of death before dishonor at the slightest offense. Like dropping a chopstick. But if samurai truly perished every time they misplaced a sock, Japan would have run out of swords by lunchtime. Let's pop that legend like a balloon pricked by a katana. The famed Bushido Code? Its strictest form only took shape after samurai culture was already in full swing. Early samurai were mostly focused on staying alive and keeping their heads attached. Dying nobly was more Plan B than Plan A. Sure, feudal lords prized loyalty, but they also demanded results, even if it meant a little rule-bending, backstabbing, or poetic bribery. In reality, samurai were pragmatic, cunning, and occasionally scandalous. Many swapped swords for scrolls, becoming bureaucrats or artists, because apparently, paperwork, not duels, was the true test of grit. Honor was real, but so was the tea set. From the disciplined honor of the samurai to the futuristic fantasies of Wabubutu weaponry, history spans a vast timeline filled with extraordinary myths. Picture a Wabubutu's battlefield as a Saturday morning cartoon. Tanks blasting lasers, soldiers zooming around on jetpacks. Sounds fun, right? Pop culture loves to reimagine the era as a gadget geek's paradise, where James Bond's Q would be green with envy. If those laser tanks and jetpack commandos had really graced the battlefield, the History Channel would have run out of documentaries by now. The reality? Y was more wrenches and war paint than lightsabers and hoverboards. The true heroes were gunpowder, steel, and whatever coffee and cigarettes they could get their hands on. Sure, there were rockets, radio-guided bombs, and the first jet aircraft. Think less Millennium Falcon and more leaf blower with attitude. Jetpacks. Only as much as your wildest comic book daydreams allowed. Normandy had plenty of sand, but not a single rocket-propelled private. Lasers? The closest thing was Superman's X-ray vision in the Sunday comics. YI was a hotbed of innovation, but if it ever tried out for Star Wars, let's just say it didn't get the callback. As W2I lore imagines laser tanks and jetpack troopers, earlier epics bring to mind explorers like Columbus, charting new worlds amid fabled fanfare. Picture this. Columbus arrives on a new continent, convinced he's landed in India, and claims it like he's snagging the best seat in a theater, waving his flag and yelling, "Mine!" as if someone's about to steal his popcorn. Cue the classic image. Triumphant Columbus, boots firmly on the ground, flags raised like he's securing beachfront property during spring break. The myth? Columbus heroically discovered America, specifically the future US of A, and casually strolled ashore somewhere between Disney World and Times Square. Here's the reality check. Columbus never set foot on what we now call the United States. His voyages dropped him in the Bahamas and Caribbean, miles away from the nearest 7-Eleven. His navigation style was less charted maps and more follow your gut, kind of like my eternal hunt for the TV remote. Meanwhile, planting a flag back then was about as reliable as dropping a pin at the wrong pizza place. Great for selfies, terrible for geography. Looking for real US trailblazers? Norse explorers probably beat Columbus by centuries. So let's just say Columbus's legacy is complicated. His flag planting even more so. Just as Columbus's voyages are often romanticized, so too are the stories of Roman gladiators who supposedly fought every match for freedom. Gladiators, a one-way ticket to freedom, or just ancient reality TV gone wildly off script? Let's get our sandals in a row. Many imagine every gladiatorial fight as a fierce battle for emancipation, but that's Hollywood doing somersaults. Sure, lots of gladiators started as slaves, but shockingly, some actually volunteered, chasing fame, fortune, or maybe just a helmet that looked really cool. Despite the hype, most bouts didn't end in freedom or a dramatic death. If every fight promised liberty, the Colosseum would have emptied faster than a discounted toga sale. The truth? Winning usually earned you cash, gifts, and a thumbs up from the crowd, not a get-out-of-Rome-free card. Only after jaw-dropping performances and a generous sprinkle of luck would a gladiator snag the prized rudis, a wooden sword marking true freedom. Most gladiators faced more rounds than a reality show contestant before they ever dreamed of liberty, if it came at all. So next time you picture a gladiator's life, sprinkle in a dash of interrupted dreams and a lot less guaranteed happy ending. From the brutal arenas of Rome, the myths shift to the eerie tales of Salem witches casting spells and flying on brooms. Imagine if every time your neighbor's cow caught a cold, the whole village pointed fingers at the lady next door, especially if she owned a broom. Welcome to Salem, 1692, where popular myth has witches soaring on broomsticks, cackling and casting spells like it's Halloween every day. But that fanciful image? It's pure European folklore flair, not New England's rather mundane reality. The truth is, most of Salem's witches were just ordinary folks who got caught in a frenzy of mass hysteria. Pun absolutely intended. No one was caught mid-flight. No eerie cackles rose above neighborhood gossip, and not a single toad made it into any official potions. The so-called evidence boiled down to nightmares, rumors, and the occasional botched pie crust. Honestly, the closest thing to a flying witch in Salem was somebody frantically sweeping out their attic. If real hexes existed, surely someone would have finally won at bingo. Turns out the only real magic at work was fear, superstition, and maybe a severe shortage of 17th century Netflix. So next time you eyeball that broom in your closet, don't worry. It's just for dodging vacuum duty these days. The supernatural legends of Salem give way to the rugged reality, or larger-than-life tales, of Wild West gunfights at high noon. Picture every small western town as a dual-fueled arena where even the tumbleweeds pause to pick a side. Hollywood and dusty pulp novels would have you believe that any slight, a crooked poker hand, a spilled whiskey, or a twitchy mustache, inevitably led to a stare-down across Main Street. Noon wasn't just lunch. It was the Wild West's version of a Tinder date. Who flinches first? But the gritty truth, stirred more with grit than glamour. If duels were that common, the Undertaker would have been the town's top entrepreneur. Real cowboys were faster with coffee cups than six-shooters. Formal gunfights, rarer than rain in the Mojave, mostly folks hurled insults, traded punches, or got a polite, "Come see me," from the sheriff. When guns did go off, it was less ballet, more chaotic mess, and far less glamorous than the silver screen's slow-motion swagger. So next time you picture a cowboy at high noon, swap that showdown for a battle against heat stroke. Or better yet, a desperate dodge of chores and suspicious bottles of so-called miracle tonic. As frontier duels paint the Wild West, so do legends of pirates burying treasure and marking maps fuel imaginations across the seas. Imagine every pirate as a hopelessly lost cartographer, stranded in their own backyard and frantically scribbling giant X's on coffee-stained napkins. The classic scene? Pirates hunched over, furiously burying treasure chests on deserted islands, then crafting elaborate maps where X marks the spot, like some kind of swashbuckling game of tic-tac-toe. Thanks, Treasure Island, for planting the charming idea that Johnny Depp's Saturdays are spent doodling what looks suspiciously like toddler-approved hopscotch designs. But here's the plot twist. Most pirates had the long-term planning skills of someone on a midnight taco run. They blew through their loot faster than you can shout, "Shiver me Starbucks!" Buried treasure? Not their style. Pirates cared more about rum than retirement plans. When they did stash loot, it was usually because capture was imminent, meaning nobody was booking a return trip, especially with the Royal Navy hot on their heels. Those legendary treasure maps? Pure fantasy. Pirates preferred memory, whispered secrets, or just letting rumor do the dirty work. Sure, X marks the spot sells better Halloween costumes, but the only ex-pirates truly chased was next on the grog ration sheet. Sorry, beachcombers, if buried chests were common, metal detectors would be the real treasure of the high seas today. From the hidden riches of pirates to the fierce valor of Spartan warriors, myths often exaggerate the grandness of ancient combatants. Picture a battalion of gleaming, oiled Spartans swaggering onto the battlefield, ready to conquer with nothing but chiseled abs and a serious, furrowed brow. Was Sparta's legendary defense system just a hardcore workout routine, or maybe a heroic case of laundry avoidance? Thanks to pop culture and Hollywood magic, our Spartan heroes have been immortalized as nearly nude, sandal-strapping demigods, far more suited to a toga party than a hoplite skirmish. In reality, the Greaves and Speedo look was reserved for rare occasions. Think ancient Olympic cosplay, not your average Monday at the barracks. Actual Spartan soldiers were decked out in bronze armor, helmets crowned with horsehair crests, muscle-sculpting breastplates, and shields that hugged the body tighter than their reputation. Imagine Leonidas charging into battle shirtless. The real threat wouldn't be Persian arrows, but hypothermia and a nasty sunburn. Spartan bravado didn't extend to leaving their vital organs one errant javelin throw away from disaster. Their true secret? Not minimalist fashion, but relentless drilling, ironclad discipline, and a phalanx formation tighter than their loincloths. Because when it comes to surviving war and avoiding awkward breezes, nothing beats some good old-fashioned armor. Spartan invincibility legends parallel tales of pharaohs whose curses were said to doom those who disturbed their tombs. In Hollywood, nothing screams bad idea like swiping bling from a mummy's tomb, unless you're craving a lifetime subscription to supernatural payback. According to movies, every ancient Egyptian tomb is rigged with an undefeated curse, ready to unleash plagues, pustules, and maybe even a few relentless bad hair days on looters. This irresistible tale went viral after Howard Carter popped open King Tut's tomb in 1922, sending headlines into a frenzy over the mysterious doom awaiting anyone bold enough to ransack royal remains. Sure, a handful of Carter's crew did meet untimely demises, but before you blame Tutankhamun's ghost, scientists wag fingers at deadly bacteria, toxic mold spores, or just that special kind of luck best described as pharaonic timing. As for the tombs themselves, forget Hollywood's death traps. Egyptians leaned on spooky hieroglyphic warnings and mystical spells, hardly enough to turn tomb-raiding billionaires into endangered species. Yet despite science debunking mummy curses like clockwork, pop culture clings tight. Because let's face it, who wouldn't swap a nasty mold allergy for a blockbuster scare? Moving from the supernatural fears of pharaoh curses, we step into the Renaissance, an era bursting with inventive gadgets and mysterious machines. Picture the Renaissance as a high school science fair, except everyone's rocking ruffled shirts and inventing helicopters instead of baking soda volcanoes. Legend has it that every inventor was basically Tony Stark in a candle-lit man cave, crafting secret machines while waiting for Marvel's call. But let's sprinkle some reality on that myth. Sure, Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks are endlessly fascinating, but most of his genius stayed on paper. His flying machines never really took flight, unless you count his doodles and daydreams, and his greatest invention might have been procrastination. The man left more unfinished projects than your average Netflix queue. Meanwhile, Renaissance tech that actually worked, like the printing press and mechanical clocks, revolutionized society, while Da Vinci's robot knight was more sci-fi cosplay than science fair winner. Most engineers spent their days building fountains and fortifying city walls, not crafting secret gadgets with hidden trapdoors. The truth is, our fantasy about Renaissance gizmos comes more from Hollywood than history. Sorry, Dan Brown, your decoder ring is just a cardigan in disguise. The clever inventions of the Renaissance contrast sharply with the dark myths of Aztec temples dedicated to endless human sacrifice. Picture Aztec temples as the original horror movie sets. Cue suspenseful music and gallons of theatrical blood. Thanks to Spanish conquistadors with a flair for dramatic storytelling, there's a pitch-black myth that these pyramids were basically ancient splash zones for non-stop heart extractions. If Hollywood had shot here, they'd have needed a full-time tile scrubber and a small lake of fake blood on standby. But here's the plot twist. Yes, human sacrifices did happen, but these temples were hardly the Mesoamerican set for a Squid Game reboot. The Spanish, masters of spicy rumors, turned every feast, festival, or bustling market into a potential horror sequel. In truth, these temples were the vibrant heart, pun absolutely intended, of Aztec life. Think city centers buzzing with colorful markets, art workshops, classrooms, and even government offices. Sacrifices were rare, deeply spiritual events, and, surprise, most Aztecs never witnessed one firsthand. So if priests had a loyalty rewards card for sacrifices, archaeologists are still searching for it. From bloody Aztec rituals to medieval plague doctors, history is filled with figures imagined as either saviors or harbingers of fate. Picture the classic plague doctor, a bird-beaked superhero swooping through medieval Europe, making awkward house calls with style. Legend has it they patrolled cobblestone streets, healing left, right, and center. Reality? About as glamorous as a soggy bread crust. Actual plague doctors were rare. Most cities could count theirs on one, nervously trembling, hand per epidemic. If they were an army, they were the AWOL kind. And those iconic masks? Forget high-tech respirators. Those beaks were basically glorified scented sachets. Their real superpower? Sniffing fresh herbs a few seconds longer before fainting at the stench. Many had less medical know-how than your cousin after a midnight WebMD deep dive, more familiar with unpaid debts than anatomy. In fact, towns often hired them to tally the dead, not save the living. Local suspicion? Oh, absolutely. The only thing they ever cured was trust. So next time you picture a plague doctor, think less Marvel superhero and more marvel at their questionable hygiene. And speaking of which, let's see what happened when the mask finally came off. Just as plague doctors are often mythologized, modern history's moon landing has been dramatized as if it were a thrilling first-person shooter mission. Strapping yourself into a tin can bound for the moon? Think of it as the ultimate real-life first-person shooter. Minus alien respawns, thankfully. Apollo 11 wasn't your casual plug-in, play-win scenario. The crew trained harder than any speedrunner. Endless simulations, anti-gravity spin sessions, and so many checklists they'd make an achievement hunter weep. Climbing aboard the Saturn V felt like being stuck in a loading screen fueled by rocket juice and pure anxiety, with 0 progress bars in sight. Then the flight itself. Getting to the moon was less point and click and more cosmic lag. A cocktail of math, mid-course hacks, and fervent prayers that Ctrl plus Z worked on orbital trajectories. Touchdown? Imagine dropping into a multiplayer arena with no walkthroughs and a fog of war made entirely of actual moon dust. Neil Armstrong's iconic first step? Less press X to look heroic, more don't accidentally moonwalk. Literally. Mission Control stayed glued as eternal co-op partners, with fewer memes and way more math. No wall hacks, no loot crates, just one shot to not rage quit Earth ever again.